Welcome to Tinfoil Tidbits, episode 9. I didn't realize we were up to 9, but I just looked on the playlist and I see that the last one was Tinfoil Tidbits, episode 8. This one's episode 9, and this one's kind of be flying by the seat of my pants. I came up with this morning. I've been on vacation, and since I had some time to relax and sleep, because it feels like forever since I've had full nights of sleep, I was listening to the Dreams chapter from Simulation Theory, and I heard all the neat dreams that I had, and I wondered, like, how come I haven't been dreaming like that? And it's because at that time I wasn't employed full time, and I was able to get to that 5th level in the dream world. And this morning I woke up, the dreams I had last night were so awesome. I was flying with my arms, like flapping my arms to fly. It was really good, and I realized it's because I haven't had a full night's sleep in a very long time, and I had some nice sleep last night. Went to bed at 10:45, woke up at 8:45, so I got my 8+ hours for the first time in a long time, and I was able to enter that 5th level in the sleep and had awesome dreams. As I woke up, and I felt rejuvenated, I felt healthy, I felt 100%. When I feel 100%, my mind becomes, I call it the fax machine from the other dimension. My mind just starts taking in all this info. It's not my own thoughts. And all these dot connections came to me this morning all at once, and I'm going to try to put it all together real quick. So a while back, someone I know, they found that I don't participate in their religion, and so they gave me this book called Eschatus. I got this like 8 years ago, and I wasn't sure if I should be insulted or appreciative of the book, just because I didn't quite know what this meant, what they thought about me. Because I saw this here and I'm thinking, all right, that's fun. And then I looked at it, I was like, wow, the artwork is spectacular in this book, regardless of whatever these symbols actually mean and what it implies that person thought of me. But nonetheless, whatever the symbolism means, put that aside, the pages of the book looked really awesome. So as far as the imagery without whatever it implies, it's pretty neat. Now, at the time, I did not know what Eschatus means. So Eschatus, you know what? Let me first get to the definition of Eschatology, because I think this right here will be part of the theme of this tinfoil tidbit from Wikipedia. And I know everybody has their opinion about Wikipedia, but we'll just go with this. Eschatology is a part of theology concerned with the final events of history or the ultimate destiny of humanity. This concept is commonly referred to as the end of the world or end times. And what do you know, over to the right here, we do have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So there's a little connection there with that previous image. I don't even know the full story of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but I've always heard about the 4 horsemen. You know, I probably should look that up too, just in case no one else knows. So let's click that real quick. The most famous print in the series is the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, referring to Revelation 6, 1-8. Okay. All right. So now that we have an idea of what Eschatus means, how it refers to the end of times, we have 4 horsemen. I mean, I only see 3, but I feel like there's another horse. Maybe it is only 3. I only see 3. No, I see 1, 2, 3, 4. We have some kind of like alien spaceships here. And this came out in the 70s, this book, I think. So neat artwork there. Pretty neat stuff here. We got a pyramid. We got, I don't know if that's the Colosseum or what. We got this angel statue. Actually, I'm going to go kind of fast because there are a lot of pictures. It's got some money. Is this a volcano or a meteor? Got this guy, whatever that is. Is that an assassin? A ninja? Who knows? We got like a crescent moon. Is he a Islamic warrior? Is this Italy right here? Looks just like Italy and Sicily. And I know you guys who do study this could probably answer what every single one of these images mean. We got a spider above, I don't know if that's a cathedral or what. Got a hand and is that the Holy Grail? Got a ring on. Wow. Whatever that is. Is that the crumbling Colosseum? Is it like the fall of Rome? Because the Colosseum's still standing. Whatever that. Yeah, let's cycle through. More meteors and the trumpets. Some boat. This guy. Yep. Wow, that one's cool. Look at that. Wow. Let's go back to that previous one. Okay, so that's some Crusaders. That's something else right there. Yeah, they took two pictures of it. What is that? How about that one? King Kong? KK? And it's like a Transformer symbol almost on the top of their head. Hey, whatever this means, it's really cool. I don't remember if there was any text with the book. I just filmed the pictures. And I took these pictures years ago, and I just been sitting on this, and as I said, I've been on vacation, so I've been going through a lot of my material that I just never got to, and this is one of them. Yeah, so there is some text here, but it was written in like these like Nostradamus type phrases. Big lion. What is that? Is that a flying saucer? Yeah, flying saucer. Yeah, flying saucers. Actually, is this a flying saucer in Antarctica? Wow, how about that one? Is that a phoenix in a lamp? Look at this guy. The peacock in the sky. Sorry. Well, look at all this. People being beamed up in spaceships. I wonder if that's how the 144,000 will escape. Beam me up, Scotty. Some book, huh? Wow. Okay, so that's what the book looks like. Bruce Pennington, Eschatus, Dragon's World, Paper Tiger. And that's what my backyard used to look like when I lived in Riverview, which is near Tampa. I don't have the book anymore, but I did photograph the pictures. And it's stored in my Google Drive. So Eschatus and Eschatology, referring to the end of times. There is a passage I saw in this. I read this article yesterday, by the way. And yesterday was the 31st of August. Today is September 1st. So under Islam, we have this passage here. When the most wicked member of a tribe becomes its ruler, and the most worthless member of a community becomes its leader, and a man is respected through fear of the evil he may do, and leadership is given to people who are unworthy of it, expect the day of judgment. I just want to read that again because this will be kind of a quasi-theme to, I think, where this video is going. When the most wicked member of a tribe becomes its ruler, and the most worthless member of a community becomes its leader, and a man is respected through fear of the evil he may do, and leadership is given to people who are unworthy of it, expect the day of judgment. So then I was watching... I just subscribed finally. I've been wanting to subscribe to Catherine Austin Fitz's Solari Report, but I didn't want to subscribe. It's $30 a month. I didn't want to subscribe to it and not have time to look at it. And that's probably what just happened, though, because I really won't have time to look at it. But I subscribed because I wanted to buy one of the books, and the only way you could buy the magazines or whatever is by being a member. So I was watching one of her recent videos that she has. Every now and then she goes on Dark Journalist. And listen to what she says here.
And so Fuller said, your partner, Austin Fitz, is number one on the B list. But she has no government experience. You can't just put her in a cabinet position. because she has no government position. Now we put people with no government experience in the presidency, so it's a new day. But then you had to have a lot. The idea was you didn't want to put somebody into the cabinet who hadn't spent some time in the swamp and understood how dangerous it was. So Brady looks back appalled and he said, under no circumstances may Catherine Austin Fitts come work in a Bush administration.
If you're into tinfoil and you've never heard a Catherine Austin Fitts interview, you haven't lived, for real. Anytime Catherine Austin Fitts is on, I make sure to check it out. She has the absolute best stories. She worked in the HUD under the Bush administration, the first Bush, HW, in the 90s, and with Jack Kemp. This particular interview, I've gotten about halfway through it so far, and it's excellent. She tells her whole story, the backstory. It's funny because every time I hear a Catherine interview, you get a little bit different piece of the history. So she does mention the point of qualifications, that you don't want to just throw anybody into the swamp. But in this case, it could mean that you want to have somebody that's corrupted. And she's always claimed that her entire slate was clean. She didn't have a dirt file and that she played by the rules. But then she does mention that they just put anybody into the presidency now, throw them into the swamp and whatnot. But I'm pretty confident Trump knows what he's getting himself into and how to handle it. Because sometimes you could have someone with a great resume, but their accomplishments aren't necessarily good accomplishments in the case of Trump's opponent. For myself, I've accomplished a lot of things, but not big time things. And it didn't matter to me before. Padding your resume never mattered to me before. But now I'm at the point now where I do want to be around quality individuals who have done substantial things with their lives, instead of just people that whine and bitch and complain or have 1,000,001 excuses why they didn't succeed. And I'm looking to be a substantial man myself. I think one of the things that's helped me along the way is I'm a pretty big fan of Dr. Steve Pieczenik. Yeah, I know his background. I know that he can't be trusted, but I don't place my trust in any individual. I just take the information and I utilize it. But Dr. Steve does have a substantial resume. And when he endorses somebody else, because the other person's a person of substance and accomplishments, I check it out and I kind of internalize it. So listen to what he says here.
The simple fact is this is a man who never created his own business, never served our country. And that's an important consideration in the Republican Party. Why? In contrast, Ron DeSantis, a humble Italian family, comes to Jacksonville, and without any help or any connections, he goes to Yale. Then he goes to Harvard Law School. Then he joins the SEAL team and becomes a combat veteran as well as a JAG officer in the SEAL team and experienced combat in Iraq. To me, DeSantis is the choice for the governor of Florida. Why? Because he's a man who's created his own business, a man who's dedicated himself to our country, and the man who received by chance the support of President Trump. Now, in the Republican Party, as much as anybody in the Democratic would dislike it, Trump means a lot. When he supports a candidate, that's the candidate we want. So we want DeSantis over Adam Putnam. We want DeSantis over the Democratic Party. And it turns out I know a little bit about the Democratic Party.
So if Ron DeSantis' life accomplishments have actually been a recent inspiration to me, he's 39. I'm 39. He's a couple months older than me. I was born in January 79. He was born in September 78. But currently, we share the same age. And I look at what this guy's accomplished. He's the best of both worlds. In education, he went to Yale and Harvard and the Naval Justice School. And he served in the military, U.S. Navy, but also was a SEAL and a JAG. And he was in the Iraq War. Lieutenant commander was his rank. So I'm sitting there saying, what have I been doing with my life? Because Ron DeSantis has been just winning. And I'm just taking this as an opportunity to put my life in gear and make sure that I meet the expectations. And some people would say, well, you can't compare yourself to Ron DeSantis, but I can. I'm from Florida. I'm 39. This guy right now is doing a lot more than I did, and I got to step my game up. That's what you do, is you see greatness. It's just been a while since I've paid attention to greatness, this guy's greatness. He should be the next governor of Florida. And between learning about Dr. Steve Pieczenik's life and all of his accomplishments, Ron DeSantis, and then other people that Pieczenik was involved with, like Rudy Giuliani, and other guys that have had substantial lives, regardless of what you think about 9/11. But these guys have had substantial lives. I need to start behaving somewhat substantial, or at least get my butt in gear. And someone like Ron DeSantis helps me do that. And as I told you how Ron DeSantis is an inspiration to me, I can see how Andrew Gillum has been an inspiration to some people as well. I mean, he was the underdog that won for the Democrat primary. And so now he's going up against DeSantis. I think he's got a tough opponent because if we're really voting who's the most qualified to lead our state, I mean, you'd have to go with DeSantis. But Gillum's had a pretty interesting accomplishments as well. We can see here in 2003, at age 23, Gillum was elected to the Tallahassee City Commission for a one-year term, the youngest person ever to be elected to the commission. He was still a political science student at FAMU when he was elected. That's pretty cool. He was subsequently elected to a full 4-year term, and in 2004, garnering 72% of the vote, and was reelected in 2008 and again in 2012. During the past decade, he has spearheaded numerous projects to bring new economic life to Tallahassee. And so he's served 11 years as city commissioner, and I guess he's the mayor now. Now, he's listed as a progressive as far as I know. I was looking up his economy and jobs, and some of these things don't sound so progressive. So at least in my knowledge. So listen to this one. By adjusting our state corporate tax level to a modest 7.75%, which allows our richest corporations to receive a tax cut and keeps our corporate tax rate more lower than 1% lower than California, we'll be able to recoup at least $1 billion and put it where we need it most, investing in our future. Now, the way that was worded, it sounded like he was lowering taxes. But he wasn't, because the current Florida tax rate is 5.5%. And he was talking about by adjusting our state corporate tax level to a modest 7.75%, which allows our richest corporations to receive a tax cut and keeps our corporate tax rate more than 1% lower than California. As if California... Yeah. So adjusting it is raising it. Adjusting it to a modest 7.9. We're still lower than California. No. Keep it at 5.5 or lower it. Andrew Gillum is the Bernie Sanders backed candidate, which implies to me that he's a progressive. We could see here Bernie backed, Andrew Gillum wins, progressive wins, Florida government primary, corporate Dems angry, the Jimmy Dore show. I do watch Jimmy Dore periodically. Yeah. So anyway, what's the difference between a liberal and a progressive? I often get asked what the difference between a liberal and progressive is. The questions from the media on this subject are always something like, isn't progressive just another name for liberal that people want to use because liberal has become a bad word? And this is from 2005, by the way, updated in 2011. The answer, in my opinion, is no. There is a fundamental difference when it comes to core economic issues. It seems to me that traditional liberals in our current parlance are those who focus on using taxpayer money to help better society. Progressive are those who focus on using governmental power to make large institutions play by a set of rules. To put it in more concrete terms, a liberal solution to some of our current problems with high energy costs would be to increase funding for programs like the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP. A more progressive solution would be to increase LIHEAP, but also crack down on price gouging and pass laws better regulating the oil industry's profiteering and market manipulation tactics. If the progressives are talking about price gouging, it is clear to me that they've never read Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell, as well as if they're talking about entering price floors and price ceilings. A liberal policy towards prescription drugs is one that would throw a lot of taxpayer cash at the pharmaceutical industry to get them to provide medicine to the poor. A progressive prescription drug policy would be one that centered around price regulations and bulk purchasing in order to force down the actual cost of medicine in America, much of which was originally developed with taxpayer R&D money. Either way, I'm not voting for either of them. Which brings us to our other Bernie Democrat, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, her opponent, after all the stuff you've seen, and I've said stupid things on YouTube, I haven't been on television, I've said dumb things. So I'm not going to show you all the things that Alexandria said, because I'm not really one to talk. But what's tinfoil about this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's opponent hasn't gotten a single donation yet. Now, this was from the end of June. And here's this article. This is her opponent. Now, check out her opponent has a PhD in economics from Yale and a bachelor degree from MIT. I went to fact check this article. I'm thinking, how could nobody... OpenSecrets.org, if we go to District 14, here she is right here, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, $860,000, 906. And the other three opponents have zeros. Now that's some tinfoil right there. How do you have nothing? How do you have $0? But I'm not voting for Andrew Gillum. I'm voting for Ron DeSantis. And just in case you took the bait of, after the day of the election, they were pushing the monkey around stuff.
I come from Chicago. So I want to be honest. It's not as if it's just Republicans who have monkeyed around with elections in the past. Sometimes Democrats have too.
Obviously, DeSantis was talking about don't blow this and put a socialist in office to stop all the progress. It's funny, progressivism, the progress that was made under Rick Scott and to a certain extent Jeb Bush. Now, a lot of Floridians that are progressives despise and really hate Rick Scott. They call him Skeletor. But Rick Scott just jumped up in my book after Dan Pena. After I found out that Rick Scott is a high-performance individual trained under Dan Pena. Check this.
I know the next president.
Who's that?
My man, Rick Scott, the current governor of the state of Florida, where I was born. He's currently running for the Senate in his last year as governor, and he is going to be the next president of these United fucking States.
2024.
Yes, sir.
And then you're going to Washington.
Oh!
But just in case you are race baited, just know that the majority of the time over the past 8 years or however long it's been that you see racist thrown out, and they were trying to say that DeSantis was saying something racist and then tying that to Trump and saying Trump is racist. My interpretation of it is anytime someone's against socialism or communism, they get called racist. And we can look to see here, Leon Trotsky invented the word racist in 1927 to render debate impossible. We have racist was a made-up word by Leon Trotsky in 1927. The word was used to browbeat all dissenters of the communist ideology. Now, there's a debunk website that tries to make this whole inconvenient truth go away. But regardless of the origin of this statement, take a look. Most of the time when you see someone getting accused of racism, chances are they're probably anti-communist or anti-socialist. But if we are going to go on the race thing, I was like, all right, that's nice. Andrew Gillum's the first black person to be nominated for governor for either party. And I saw that it said for Florida. So that implied to me that there was other black governors possibly elected. And I thought, it's probably in the 1800s, and they probably were a Republican, because that's why I've never heard who the first Republican black governor was. Sure enough, looked it up, found PBS Pinchback. Pinckney Benton Stewart Pinchback was an American publisher and politician, a Union Army officer, and the first African-American to become governor of a U.S. state, a Republican. Pinchback served as the 24th governor of Louisiana from December 9th, 1872 to January 13, 1873. He was one of the most prominent African-American office holders during the Reconstruction era. So this guy was pushed down the memory hole and was never taught in any of the black history classes that I've been in. And it's most likely because he was a Republican and they try to erase that history. So here's Pinckney Pinchback, here's somebody to learn about. And ask yourself, why were you never told about this guy? And as for taxing, if you love taxing people and you happen to be on the progressive side of things, there's a thing called the Laffer curve. And in economics, the Laffer curve illustrates a theoretical relationship between rates of taxation and the resulting levels of government revenue. It illustrates the concept of taxable income elasticity, i.e., taxable income changes in response to changes in the rate of taxation. The Laffer curve assumes that no tax revenue is raised at the extreme tax rates of 0% and 100%, and that there is a rate between 0% and 100% that maximizes government taxation revenue. The Laffer curve is typically represented as a graph that starts at 0% tax with zero revenue, rises to a maximum rate of revenue at an intermediate rate of taxation, and then falls again to zero revenue at a 100% tax rate. You know, we might as well take a look at Reaganomics, since that's such a big hot topic and a phrase that's used often. So Reaganomics refers to the economic policies promoted by U.S. President Ronald Reagan during the 80s. These policies are commonly associated with supply-side economics, referred to as Trickle-Down Economics or Voodoo Economics by political opponents, and free market economics by political advocates. The four pillars of Reagan's economic policy were to reduce the growth of government spending, reduce the federal income tax and capital gains tax, reduce government regulation, and tighten the money supply in order to reduce inflation. The results of Reaganomics are still debated. Supporters point to the end of stagflation, stronger GDP growth, and an entrepreneur revolution in the decades that followed. Critics point to the widening income gap, an atmosphere of greed, and the national debt tripling in 8 years, which ultimately reversed the post-World War II trend of a shrinking national debt as percentage of GDP. So then we need to look at trickle-down economics. Let's see what that says. Trickle-down economics, also referred to as trickle-down theory, is an economic theory that advocates reducing taxes on businesses and the wealthy in society as a means to stimulate business investment in the short term and benefit society at large in the long term. It is a form of laissez-faire capitalism in general, and more specifically, supply-side economics. Whereas general supply-side theory favors lowering taxes overall, trickle-down theory more specifically targets taxes on the upper end of the economic spectrum. So then I think we need to either look at laissez-faire or supply-side. I think we'll go supply-side first, since that showed up twice now. Supply-side economics is a macroeconomic theory arguing that economic growth can be most effectively created by lowering taxes and decreasing regulation. According to supply-side economics, consumers will then benefit from a greater supply of goods and services at lower prices, and employment will increase. It was started by economist Robert Mundell during the Ronald Reagan administration. The Laffer curve, is one of the main theoretical constructs of supply-side economics. The idea that lower tax rates when tax level is too high will actually boost government revenue because of higher economic growth. And by the way, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. I'm just saying when you see people labeled as that all the way, like all day, every day on TV, take a look, find out they're probably anti-communist. And that's really what's being protested. In 2008, the original Tea Party of Ron Paul was formed, and then it was kind of hijacked by Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin, and then became the bigger Tea Party, and then Mitt Romney lost. And after losses by McCain and Romney, Republicans started to wake up and fulfill the prophecy that before I knew about political parties in 2002, one of my first jobs was to work a political campaign, and I met some libertarians. I didn't know what a libertarian was, and he said, well, we're kind of like the Republicans, but we have our eyes wide open, whereas the poor conservatives are just used by the elite Republicans. I didn't know there was a difference. Someday the conservatives will join forces with the libertarians and will bypass these elite establishment Republicans that have been using us for our votes for years. Now, since I learned about Ron Paul, and whenever the movie Matrix of Evil came out by Alex Jones, I saw a Ron Paul speech on that VHS tape, let you know how far back it goes. And I thought, wow, here's a tinfoil congressman. I'd totally vote for this guy. And then he ran for president in 2008. And I was like, oh my goodness, here's my guy. And he ran again in 2012. And along the way, Republicans were trying to peer pressure me into not voting for Ron Paul because he can't win. And I later on learned that these were all rich establishment Republicans who were Republicans in name only, known as rhinos. And they offered McCain and Romney. And I'm sitting there saying, heck, you guys could have ran Ron Paul and lost, because McCain and Romney didn't win. And so, by 2012, I learned my lesson. I stuck with Ron Paul. So if you're wondering, if you're like, hey, I can't believe Johnny does politics. No. I'm a Ron Paul Republican. And, Trump represents conspiracy theory. This is Tinfoil Tidbits. Trump is all the way a conspiracy theorist. Alex Jones put his whole entire thing on the line for Donald Trump. And, Trump's tinfoil all the way. Like I voted, the reason I voted for Trump was I've been gaslit my whole life and told to shut up about any kind of conspiracy theories or made fun of. And I was like, well, man, if I could get the tinfoil guy in, at least for 4 to 8 years, my perspective will be the dominant one. So that's why I voted Trump. Not afraid to admit it. Voted for the tinfoil, voted for the conspiracy theory, roll with Alex Jones. I've been an info warrior since he was on public access television. I know you guys have all these theories about Alex Jones or whatnot. And again, I don't put all my faith in one person. I utilize people that advance whatever parts of whatever agenda I have. Alex Jones always talks about the breakaway civilization. He talks about releasing the free energy technology. He talks about biotechnology. He talks about robotics. He talks about all the things that I talk about. And he endorses Trump. And there's videos of Trump I have on my channel, Trump and the Breakaway Civilization. Trump represents all those same topics that this channel is about. So that's why I voted Trump. That's why I roll with Jones and InfoWars. That's why I roll with Pachenik. That's why I roll with Ron Paul. I'm completely unapologetic for my support of Ron Paul and all of the above. And I even know that Trump does not follow the Austrian School of Economic Theory to the letter the way Ron Paul would, but you can't get everything, right? So he's the best we could possibly get out of the candidates that were available, out of all the candidates, both on the Democrat side and the Republican side in 2016. Further, if you think I'm set tripping on left versus right and all that, and that I don't understand the paradigms, the divide and conquer and all that, no, I've been an info warrior, regardless of how Jones turned out. I've been an info warrior. I'm aware. I was with Jones before he was on the right. I was there when he was a libertarian, so relax. Now, what happened was a shift of the party, very similar to the 1964 shift that I made a video about when Barry Goldwater ran against Rockefeller. See right there, Goldwater ran against Rockefeller. That was the first rift. And in 2008 and 2012, the same Rockefeller Republicans gave us McCain and gave us Romney and gave us 2 losses when we could have had Ron Paul. And the Tea Party rose, and then Trump came about, and then Trump attracted a bunch of sane independents, sane Democrats, regular people that have been dying for change, waiting for something to happen, people on the sidelines that didn't want to vote because they felt like the voting was corrupted. It showed me that most of America is tinfoil, and they've been waiting for the tinfoil candidate. Trump is that tinfoil candidate, and he won. And Trump completely has modified and changed and exposed the Republican Party elites, the rhinos, and now it's basically 2 parties. It's because the libertarians left the Libertarian Party and essentially joined forces with the conservatives, as I said, in 2013. That was the mass exodus out of the Libertarian Party. The present-day Libertarian Party is kind of like the Progressive Party, or it's like a liberal-tarian party. It's not the Ron Paul Libertarian Party, because everybody's on the Trump train now. So the Trump train has modified the Republican Party along with the Tea Party, and the same similar thing is now happening on the left, but it's it's a lot different. So the left now, because of Bernie Sanders, so just like Ron Paul brought the tinfoil out, Bernie Sanders brought the red out. He brought the socialist. Prior to Bernie Sanders, I used to always call Democrats out on their socialism, and they would always deny it. And the primary reason I'm anti-left is because of the lies that they tell. They're always denying And they're always modifying language, like you saw about raising taxes. They called it adjusting taxes. And I'm an anti-obscurant. I always like to make things in plain English so that people could understand. So they do all these deceptive means. That's my number one reason I have problems with them, because they're always deceptive. Tinfoil conspiracy theorists don't like deception. After Bernie Sanders came out of the socialist closet, and you got to remember, Vladimir Lenin, said that he's one of the most famous communists. He said that the goal of socialism is communism. And once Bernie came out of the closet, it was a big coming out of the closet party. And now they're not hiding anymore. And now they're starting to take over the Democrat Party because, Clinton lost. And so they're feeling the same way the Tea Party felt. They're like, heck, we could have lost with Bernie Sanders. Why didn't you put Bernie up? Why did you rig the election against Bernie in favor of Hillary Clinton? And I can't blame them. If I thought Bernie was easier to beat than Clinton, I would have exposed all of the election fraud that the superdelegates, without superdelegates, Hillary Clinton did not receive enough votes in the primary election to become the automatic winner. It should have gone to a brokered primary. But because I thought that Clinton was easier to beat than Bernie, because I didn't see anybody support Hillary, I saw everybody support Bernie. Feel the burn. I just kind of told a few people about it, but they weren't going to run with it. And the reason why they didn't run with it was because deep down, they knew how corrupt Hillary was, and they thought that, well, at least she'll win. So we'll just keep our mouths shut. Once Hillary lost, can you imagine if you were a deep down socialist at your heart and you despised corporate Democrats, and then you knew Bernie won the primary, but you said nothing because you thought Hillary was crooked enough to rig the election, and you did nothing, and then you lost anyway. Yeah, you're pretty mad. And I'm pretty sure it's that anger that's being projected onto Trump. I don't think they're really as mad at Trump as they're mad at themselves for allowing Bernie, their true self, who they really are, to lose to Clinton, the big bad wolf. And Trump slayed the big dragon. Trump slayed Hillary Clinton and the car companies. That's the story that Michael Moore told. And so now the Democrats are faced with these far left socialists taking over the party, and that seems to be what's happening. Just like they call it far right are taking over the Republican Party. So it's almost like there should be three parties now. It should be the Trump train party, the socialist Bernie party, and then the rhinos and the dinos. The dinosaurs, the dinos are the Democrats in name only. The rhinos and dinos have basically been the corporatists, the elites, and they've been on the same team running their own candidates as opposition for a long time now. They're the New World Order party. And so they'll probably join forces because it's the only way they'll be able to win. And there's not much difference between Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. So they'll all join forces, and there'll be a Trump train and a Bernie train. The rhino dino corporate establishment should just call themselves the moderates. I tried to get into Bernie, but when I'd watch his speeches, it would be like the leader of the hobbits, or we're going to take from the rich people and we're going to give it to those little people. It's time for the little people to win. The big people have been winning too long. And it just felt like giving prizes to the losers just because the winners have won for long enough. And it's time that they give it up. It just didn't make sense. You got to win the Super Bowl to be the champion. And a lot of my friends from childhood and middle school and high school are all progressives, and they love their Bernie candidates. And so I saw this one. So I guess the girl from Sex and the City is running against Andrew Cuomo in the Democrat primary. I guess she lost. But look at their platform. It's insane that these are the things that are most important to them. End cash bail. End solitary confinement. Legalize marijuana. End the prosecution of children as adults. Release police misconduct records. End arrests for low-level offenses. The marijuana. I had made this graph. I forgot where I put it. The most important political topic to progressives is getting their marijuana. They want that marijuana so bad. That's the number one topic. And then the number two thing is let's rob the rich. And everything else is minor. Oh, and let the felons out of jail and let them all vote. So they just got this platform that just none of these. I mean, okay, end cash bail. Yeah, all right. That's consistent with Ron Paul. End solitary confinement. I mean, what does that even mean? Like, legalize marijuana. Schools, not jails. And the rest. Anyway, Cynthia for New York. And the worst part is your other choice was Andrew Cuomo. He said America was never great. That's the kind of stuff where I'm just like, man, it's your choice, it's your opinion, whatever. I like the USA, I like Trump, and I really don't like anything the progressives do.
That Hillary would lose automatically, and that Obama, whoever he was, and I didn't know who he was, at that time was going to be the primary candidate. But also, we in the intelligence community knew a lot about Obama. Contrary to his stories and his nonsense and the manifestations of a life that he said he was an African-American, his father was Kenyan. Of course, the person he never talked about was the most important person, and that was his mother, who was a CIA operative. And in all due respect to her, she was quite formidable. She came from the Midwest. She was a white woman, Caucasian, who had studied and gotten a PhD in anthropology. Now, when you get a PhD in anthropology, or I get a PhD at MIT, you're automatically tagged by the CIA or an intelligence community because you become a very important asset to the United States. Not only was she important, she was also trained in Russian and understood Indonesia. So she was sent to Indonesia to evaluate and assess Russian influence in Suharto. The rest became nonsense. I mean, Obama was born of this woman. He's American only by the fact that this woman was an American operative. He never talked about her. He never went to Columbia. He went to Occidental College, which was where we put all the ex-CIA operatives in Los Angeles, and then he came in on affirmative action at Harvard. So immediately we in the intelligence community said, okay, if this is what you want to produce out of Brennan and Tenet and all the other failed DCI, CIA directors, then we will push back, and we will show you how we push back, because we couldn't accept this kind of false candidate. And in fact, when Trump began to run, we weren't sure about him. We had 16 candidates, but for the most part, it was clear to us that the only one who could break the paradigm or break the kind of the paradigm of the past was a man who had been independent of wealth, independent in personality, and who had a very unusual temperament, who could really rile up the system. And there was Donald Trump.
Here's another thing I saw. This one might be an inappropriate, but the tinfoil has gone so far with Q that people don't even believe John McCain died the way it was presented on TV. And it makes you think, because the coverage was so over the top, so many people virtue signaling in praise of McCain. And these are all people that tricked you to nominate McCain, but they all voted for Obama, but suddenly they love the guy. Of course they love him. He delivered the Obama presidency, and he also stopped he was the one vote that stopped overturning and repealing Obamacare. So John McCain is definitely their agent, and it's no doubt why they cherish him. But it's also possible that it was a diversion or a cover-up. So again, John McCain probably is dead. I have no idea to know either way. But if you look through this whole thread, nobody thinks McCain died, or he didn't die naturally. The code name for John McCain in the Q thing is no name. And there's all these, not a single person thinks he died. And they're posting all these Q posts. When someone dies on their own terms, it's called suicide. So I'm just mentioning this for a tinfoil perspective. I'm not saying this is my position, but, and I think I'm saying that because the media has got me scared to say things like this, because they yanked Alex Jones off for saying Sandy Hook, even though there's so many questions about Sandy Hook, but whatever. Look up this particular thread here if you want to see what I'm talking about. No, he's not dead. Hillary will fall next. They forgot. America is awake. Where we go one, we go all. Going underground. Check the General Flynn Twitter. I don't believe he's dead. If he is, okay, but this smells fishy. My thoughts exactly. Doesn't matter. Let him go. The rest can follow. So anyway, that's the cute part. No one thinks McCain's dead. All right. And another one. I made a video about this, but I just want to reiterate the global warming thing because somebody said, you're not one of these people that thinks global warming's fake, are you? And I was like, bro, if you want to find out how it is a scheme to impose a global tax to fund a global government, watch how quick someone rejects you when you propose that global warming is not man-made, but offer a concession like it's cyclical or it's natural if it exists at all. And then point out to them, so say like, hey, okay, let's just say it really is warming, right? All right, but it's cyclical. It's not man-made. It's not good enough for them. They require it to be man-made and not cyclical. Because if it's cyclical, then they can't extort you. Because I think what this is the carbon tax is the replacement for Catholicism's original sin. They finally figured out how to tax the air you breathe. You're a sinner because you exhale carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas. And then once you give them all that, because when you say things like them, that global warming is a scheme to impose a global tax to fund a global government, they start walking backwards. Like they're keeping their eyes on you. They're walking backwards. They're like, oh my God, this one can see. And then say to them, hey man, how do you propose we put a stop to volcanoes? Because even if everybody turns off every carbon emitting thing that we have, every factory closes, every car stops, then what happens when a volcano erupts? It negates all that we gained. But not a single progressive, not a single Democrat, none of them. I say, hey, listen. If you really want to stop carbon emissions, if you really want to do that, I do too. Why are you not promoting and advancing every single day the end of artificial scarcity, talking about free energy every single day, the same way you talk about marijuana every day? Why don't you talk about free energy every day? Why isn't free energy at the very top of your platform? If you really wanted to stop the carbon emissions, release the 0 point, release the free energy, release the alternative energy. But none of those are the solutions. Your solution is tax. I really want to solve the problem. I don't think you do. You want to blame man-made global warming. It's got to be that. It can't be cyclical because then you can't extort. Then nobody has the original sin. But anyway, this is the other part too. I often hear progressives and liberals and whatnot claim how enlightened they are and that everybody else just isn't enlightened. I find myself to be so thoroughly enlightened that I want to know, what am I not enlightened to other than extorting other people's money by accusing them of things? What am I not enlightened to? Because I feel like I'm so enlightened. I'm so read, so learned, so educated. I have my eyes so wide open. What am I not enlightened to? I've read so many utopian books. I've covered them on my channel. Ecotopia, Looking Backward, Walden 2. Well, A Grunch of Giants isn't one, but I've read a couple others. So I'm a college graduate. I've been through all the liberal schooling. And how am I not enlightened? Because I'm not accepting your way. And you guys don't accept what I am. Because I'm not even pushing the Republican or conservative agenda. I'm just utilizing them to get to where I want to go. Because when I presented to the left, every single leftist I ever meet, that I debate with, discuss with, I present them the free energy, alternative energy, all these things that, as Stephen Greer called it, that present a macroeconomic, geopolitical, multi-$100 trillion impact to the economy. And they're not interested. So what does that tell you? They're not really interested in solving the problems. They're interested. They have a scheme. Their enlightened scheme is to extort money via imposing or their global government. That's the only thing I could conclude to. They'll deny it. And you're probably going to say, I hope there's no, maybe there's some progressives in this audience, and I'm really trying to arm people with just concepts. But if there are any out there, I know what you're going to do already, because I've been studying you. You're going to deny. You're going to say I'm misrepresenting, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't work, man. Go ahead. You can leave those comments. I'm going to make a video on Atlas Shrugged. I've read Atlas Shrugged. That's going to be probably my next video is to talk about Atlas Shrugged. After reading that book, you become a completely invincible person and you see through this illusion, that enlightened illusion, so much. But anyway, I think I'm done for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope I didn't piss too many of you off, but at least I tried to provide a background to how I think, why I think. And it's all for tinfoil. Tinfoil is part of the right because the left has utilized so much deception. When the right lies, it's completely obvious. When the left does it, it's not because they always hide it and disguise it through things. I'm out of here.